So today's session, The Wellness Advantage, is presented by Jamie Gold from Jamie Gold Kitchen, Bath, and Wellness Design. Jamie Gold, CKD, CAPS, MCCWC, is an award-winning author, speaker, wellness design consultant, and Mayo Clinic certified wellness coach. She's a regular contributor to Forbes.com, Multi-Housing News, and Kitchen and Bath Design News. She has also been published in House Beautiful, HuffPost, Design Milk, Apartment Therapy, and numerous other publications. Given her years of design experience and knowledge, Jamie is frequently called upon by her media colleagues for insights, tips, and trends. This has been particularly true since the pandemic hit the US, making our home spaces even more important. Please join me in welcoming Jamie.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, CJ. All right, let's get into it. Every CEU course has learning objectives, and these are the 6 that I've outlined for the course. And I'm not going to have everyone read through them all right now because we're going to go through one by one. Let's take a look at who folks are and why you're here. Raise your hand for any that apply to you. Kitchen and bath designers, interior designers, builder, design, build firm, general contractors, retailers, manufacturer or manufacturer's rep, distributors, trades professional like a tile installer. Did I miss anyone? Architect, okay, excellent. And was there another one besides architect? Okay, so why now? Why are we looking at this topic at this point? Well, we're seeing there's just a whole slew of health-focused baby boomers. I'm in that age range myself, and seniors who are investing in wellness and longevity and in our homes. And at the other end of the age spectrum, we have millennials and Gen Z who are both extremely enthusiastic about home buying and also very wellness focused. And what we're seeing is that wellness overall, in all of its categories, is an extremely fast-growing industry. And the pandemic has accelerated all of that, as CJ mentioned in her introduction. And what we've seen too is not just an overall awareness of wellness, but an overall awareness of wellness in our homes and popularity and demand for that. So what is wellness design? That's a term you hear quite a bit, right? Well, this is my definition. Wellness design is the practice of creating spaces that support the safety, health, and overall well-being of their occupants. But why do I get to make up definitions, right? Well, I have a background in media and marketing. That's kind of the definition end of the spectrum. I became a kitchen and bath designer almost 20 years ago. Written a couple of books. As CJ mentioned, I'm not going to go over all the editorial stuff again. But I also became interested in wellness, kind of the personal side of the wellness design equation. So I went to Mayo Clinic and became a certified wellness coach a few years back. And I've been focused on my own wellness, especially since 2009 when my marriage crashed and burned. It's like, gotta get healthy again. So when I do consults or write books or articles or blog posts, I speak about design from the standpoint of wellness. And I look at spaces for training, recovery, and fueling. Fueling, we're talking about food. So your kitchen is your home's fueling station. Recovery, you've got bedrooms, bathrooms, places where you get clean, where you get rested. And training, a lot of people now have fitness spaces at home. I know I do. After my gym closed, I started to work out at home, and I haven't stopped since then. Anyone else work out from home? You folks? But training is also the gear that we have and where we keep it. And storage, of course, is a big part of that. And what I've found is that being an athlete in place is a lot more uplifting to a lot more folks than aging in place. Because really, basically, nobody likes the A word. Even in Florida, where you have the second highest population of aging folks in the country. But wellness, that just speaks to everyone's concern. Just everyone, all ages, all abilities, and all interests. So it's very comprehensive, much more so than just aging. So learning objective number 1, who wants to read this one out? And by the way, if nobody volunteers, I will volunteer you. Amy. Yep. Okay, so let's start with wellness. I like to look at wellness as being grounded in science and research. So it's not just metaphysical, it's not just theoretical. There's actual underpinnings to the statements about wellness. And it's not just about not being ill or sick, it's about a positive state of mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And in recent research, by the way, it was shown that mental well-being is people's top concern when it comes to their home spaces. That was just very recent research published by one of the top research consultancies for this industry. But we all have our own wellness passions, right? Things that we just love doing, and if we didn't do it, the day doesn't feel complete. So raise your hand if yours is running. Any runners? Cycling. Yoga. Weightlifting or strength training. CrossFit. Hiking or climbing. I know it's not that much in Florida, but people come from all over for this show. Surfing. Pilates. Any others? So, one of the reasons that we do these is for our physical health, but also for our mental health and benefits. So let's look at the benefits that we get from being physical. So stress release, is that, who would say stress release is a big part of why you do what you do to keep moving? Then we have connection with nature, being outdoors with trees and sometimes hills or ocean, coast, rivers. Perspective on life. I know for me, if I'm out in the mountains or even at the ocean, it just kind of puts things in perspective, how small we all are compared to the world around us. Sometimes it's the only time we get to see people. Like we're so busy working and taking care of our responsibilities that sometimes you just call a workout buddy or a running buddy and say, hey, let's meet and do a few miles. Improved sense of well-being. Any others that folks are getting on the mental end of things? So what does getting healthier mean? Yes, movement's a big part of that. Now, if you go to all the old definitions that our parents and grandparents handed down, you've got the eating better, more vegetables, less junk, and you've got exercising, and quitting smoking has been a big one, and managing stress, and sleeping more. Not everyone needs 8 hours, but whatever your need is, meeting that. Some of the newer ones that we keep seeing over and over, and I know a lot of the people that we market to are thinking about this, sitting less at work. One of the contributors to my book says sitting is the new smoking. Another one is being more mindful, present, grateful, connecting more with nature. We know that's a big one. Any others that people can think of that you're hearing lately? Thing is that all of these, old and new, they miss that home health connection. And we know, especially from the past few years, that homes and communities have a huge impact on wellness. In fact, another stat that came up in that same research about mental well-being being a priority, that 95% of people now associate homes and health. And I think if you asked that question 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you would not have that answer. But 95% of people are now aware that there is a connection between where they live and how healthy, and how their homes are supporting or sabotaging them. And it's kind of sad that it took a global pandemic to drive that point home for us. But what we've seen is that in our industry, that we are very well positioned to play a role in a $4.4 trillion wellness market. That's the overall size of what's possible. Sound like something you folks want to be part of? Well, let's look at how. I look at wellness design as having 5 facets, and they are health and fitness, safety and security, accessibility, functionality, and comfort and joy. And there are a lot of products that will have more than one of these facets. I think porcelain tile has all 5, but we'll look at that. So which of these facets show up in our home projects? All of them, right? So let's look at it in connection with porcelain tile. So for health and fitness, you have a surface that's hypoallergenic. It's mold resistant. It's not going to shield dust mites in the bedroom if you're using it for surfacing. And as we saw, I don't know, anyone get out to the ABK booth? You've got that cooking surface prime. You have a surface that you can merge with induction cooking that is just a healthy way to cook. It doesn't put any risks into your space. For safety and security, again, non-toxic, no VOCs, slip resistant, water friendly, and non-flammable. Does anyone else live in an area where there's a lot of wildfires? Because I know we've had that in California quite a bit. If a spark hits the side of any building clad in a tile, it's not going to go up. And structure fires can be pretty hazardous because all of those chemicals and a lot of surfacing materials just make the air quality horrendous for the firefighters and anyone who's fleeing that area. So, that adds to the safety facet here. Then in terms of accessibility, you have a surface that's easy to move a walker on, easy to move a wheelchair over, easy indoor-outdoor transitions, especially when you're able to bury the door track in the flooring. So it's just, in and out, super easy. And of course, you've got the aesthetic value as well of that continuity. Functionality-wise, we've got a very family-friendly surface. So let's say you've got young kids and they're playing with rough toys, the toy trucks, or they're spilling things on it. It's going to be pretty hardy. It's not going to stain easily. That's a lot less stress for the parent. It's durable. It's low maintenance. If you're taking it outdoors, it's heat and frost resistant. So that makes it a pretty functional material for a home. Then you have everyone's favorite facet, comfort and joy. I'm a big fan of radiant floor heating. Anyone else use that in any of their projects? And especially in cold climates, it is so delicious underfoot. People think, well, I don't want to put tile down. That's going to be cold. Doesn't have to be. And of course, it fits any decor. You can go traditional, transitional, eclectic, modern, customizable. You've seen a lot of the options where you could just mix and match things. And of course, it's very biophilia friendly. Anyone look at all the patterns with the plants in them. And I even saw one with birds. I love birds. I had a house in Florida where we looked out on the pond with the birds landing on it all the time. Well, I don't live near those birds anymore, but you can have them in your decor. So that enhances the biophilia potential. As I mentioned, you've got multiple facets of wellness design that are enhancing your project's wellness potential. And when you talk to clients and prospects, it's not just about this looks good, but this can be good for you. Let's look at learning objective number 2. Who wants to read this one out? Well, thank you. All right, so what is positioning? It's an effort to influence consumer perception on your brand versus your competitors, and to occupy a clear, unique, advantageous position in their mind. So when you think about top brands like Nike, they have a position in the mind. Even Starbucks or Coca-Cola, they occupy a clear position. And you want to have that position in your field relative to your competitors. So some of the positioning benefits include having that unique position, being relevant to anyone who's focused on their own wellness and health, being perceived as timely in this era, even though in some ways we are past COVID, just like our grandparents or parents who lived through the Great Depression. Any major disaster, any major crisis kind of imprints itself on your consciousness and it stays with you. So you also get to compete on service and knowledge rather than just on pictures and price. And we've seen that, yes, price matters. People have that, I want to get the best deal that I can. But people who are wellness focused, especially homeowners, they will spend more on themselves and their families. If something can give them more peace of mind, more health, more safety, that is something that is perceived value to them. So how do you position yourself as a wellness professional? Well, the first thing is to be authentic. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I took a CrossFit 6-week onboarding course about a decade ago, and I realized that that's not for me. I wasn't going to stay with it. So am I going to position myself to a client as someone who shares their passion for CrossFit? No, I wouldn't be authentic in that way. I could talk about other passions I have that we share, but that would not be one of them. You can also, and you should be talking about how your home connects with your passions, how you live in your home, and how they can do the same in theirs. So if you share a passion for hiking or running or yoga, how you can create spaces that support those. And of course, you want to link the products that you're selling to wellness benefits. And if you're not fitness oriented, you're not out of luck. There are still ways that you can tie into wellness and be perceived as a wellness professional. So the important thing is just to meet people where you're both at, to speak into their listening from that place of authenticity. So how do you do this? Well, one way is to identify influencers in your wellness area. And by wellness area, I'm talking about if you're passionate about running, if you're passionate about Pilates, you probably follow some of those influencers on social media, or you buy their books, and identify who are the leaders in that field. And they could be, if they're in your local area, potential project partners. And you can suggest to them win-win opportunities so that you can gain new clients, they can gain new clients. Because they could be cause-related. Maybe they're passionate about cancer cures, or you're both passionate about Alzheimer's, or whatever it is. And you can do presentations, you could write together, you could sponsor an event together. But mainly, it has to fit both of your businesses, and it has to fit both of your wellness passions, or somebody's going to back out before the project is done or realized. So let's look at a model of a local designer, someone who's selling design solutions, and using yoga as a model. Now, if you're not into yoga, if you have a different pursuit, you could translate this. You can make it apply to you, but we're going to use yoga as the example here. So one is, you could design yoga spaces for clients that you've designed past rooms for. You've done a kitchen for them, you've done a bath, you've redid a living room. You could suggest yoga spaces. You could design kitchens and baths and she sheds and people who you know through your yoga studio. You can blog about yoga space design if you have a blog. You could post on social media about this topic. Now let's say that you do online design. Does anyone here design for clients who live elsewhere? Couple hands. Because this works when you already set up to design remotely. And a lot of people started doing that during COVID. Some people stopped designing locally altogether, and they're now only doing remote design. And some people do both. So you can create a nationally oriented program if you're already set up that way. And again, this works if that's an interest of yours. Is anyone here doing only remote? local and remote, and local only. Okay, so let's look at some opportunities. You could be a guest on a yoga podcast, talk about the spaces that are yoga friendly, share posts in social media groups, share design advice where it's relevant to the conversation. You don't want to be spamming your groups, but if somebody's talking about, I can never get out to the studio, I love yoga, but I can never get there because my kid now has this or that going on. Well, you can talk about, hey, you can do yoga at home. It doesn't take a lot of space, and you can create an area that will work for you. And here are some tips. And of course, you can consult doing online design in other areas for people in those groups. And you could partner with influencers on programs that are out of your local area, as long as you're set up to do business. Let's look at some business to business. Did we have manufacturer reps? Does anybody raise their hand for that one? Okay, so a couple of ideas. You can include yoga-inspired product points. So you're doing a biophilic-oriented space with tile walls that appeal to that. There's a lot of choices around the show floor. And you could do that in your lunch and learns. You could provide yoga class comps with anyone who's willing to have a lunch and learn at their place of business, or if you're doing it, setting up at a trade show like the ASID expos and NKBA has expos, just give out those class comps. And of course, if you're doing class comps, it's ideal to get a studio that has multiple locations, just to accommodate people who live across town. And of course, you can offer potentially yoga stretch sessions at a wellness product-focused event. So that just attracts the eye. It's not just wall-to-wall displays of products. People see movement. They see a crowd gather. That can help drive booth traffic. Some retailer ideas. Helpful tip sheets again. Creating Instagram Reels or TikTok videos or YouTube Shorts with ideas and tips and product availability. And you don't have to be a master videographer. There's software packages now that make this easier, like Canva or Adobe Spark, where you could do it. You don't have to be on camera. You just create some short things that are informative. And you could partner with a citywide yoga studio, again, to offer class comps with the purchase of a showroom tour. Builder general contractors. You can create and show yoga flex spaces with tile surfaces in your plans or renderings, or if you're doing metaverse design, you'll show them in that environment. Again, video shorts can work for you. You can also host a live or a virtual open house that would have a yoga instructor showing how to do a couple of moves and maybe giving out some yoga blocks with your company logo on it. So these are all just different ways to tie in a wellness passion with your business. And again, it's transferable to other activities besides yoga. Let's look at the next learning objective. Who wants to read this one? I have one of you ladies read this next one. Identify the wellness markets in your community. So what is a wellness community? It's an engaged market segment that's focused on activity and a lifestyle that's tied into physical health, mental health, personal identity, and an ongoing investment of time and money. So it's not just what somebody did a few years ago or does once in a while because they have to. It's a passion. So let's kind of define and deconstruct. So communities, that self-identified group. It could be your running club, your cycling club, your yoga studio. It could be local or online. And then that engaged market segment, just people, and you probably know some folks like this if it's not you, you're always looking at the latest gear that you can get or the latest place to train or the latest event that you could participate in, and all related to this passion. Personal identity, again, let's say you did a triathlon once 8 years ago, as I did. I'm not an Ironman, but somebody who was avid about this might even have that on their LinkedIn profile, right? You've probably seen that. So a Spartan, a marathoner, this is somebody who identifies with this. It's so much a part of who they are. And that ongoing investment of time and money. So, local, this is important too. If you're only doing business in a local area, that's your territory. You're focused on where you're at, not the greater online world. That person should have a business if you're doing B2B, or a home in your local area if you're doing business to consumer. And they should be seeking resources to meet that business or home ownership need in your local area. We've all seen people who have 2 homes, and maybe they only get their needs met at the other location that they're at. Maybe it's Florida and North Carolina, for example. It's pretty common. So you want somebody who's getting resources to meet their home ownership or business need, depending on your business, where you're at. And they should be spending significant time there. If it's a second home and they're only putting on Airbnb most of the year and they're only there a little bit, not a great prospect for you. And they should be spending time on their wellness passion in your local area. So this stat is pre-COVID, 112,000 on health and fitness. That number, if we've all seen prices go up in the last few years, if anyone shopped for any weight equipment, for example, that's probably 10–20% higher now. Kind of nice to get some of that money for our bottom line, right? So let's evaluate a local wellness market. How many local suppliers are there? How many local events, facilities and trainers, active local groups? What are the sports economics? What are its demographics? In other words, what's the age, marital status, overall profile of its active participants? And do they fit your business profile? So looking at the triathlete, and I use that one because that's a pretty big sport in my area, but it's also a very high economic profile sport. So just to get in, just the entry-level economics on this are pretty high. But that doesn't compare to the person who's the Ironman, who's doing the big events all the time, where you're talking about $975 for the Ironman Kona fee, which doesn't include plane fare to Hawaii, doesn't include hotel in Hawaii, doesn't include trainer or special foods. So this is somebody who has money to spend. Demographics, average income, again, that's pre-COVID, 62% married, white collar, in that age range where they're likely a homeowner. This makes this person a good prospect, potentially. So how do you reach them? Well, you can visit the specialty retailers, and if you are already involved in that, even at the entry level, but it's something you're passionate about too, then you know who some of the retailers are. You may not know all of them, but you could check out their bulletin boards that they have in front, where they have information about upcoming events, information about classes and trainers. Check that out. Pick up any publications that they have near those bulletin boards, so you could see what's going on and who's writing about it and what they're saying and how that might fit with your goals. And we'll get into the media in a bit too. Attend classes and events. Research trainers. Maybe you have someone you're working with. Doesn't hurt to try other trainers as well. And you'll work out with several trainers and groups. That just gets you meeting more people. And get involved with local events. If you can't participate in all of them, you could potentially volunteer or sponsor as well. Even take a booth at the expo where people go to pick up their packets, and maybe do it with an influencer in your area. Objective 4 is to identify the optimum segment of the wellness market for your business. So let's look at the criteria. Does it have a strong local presence? Does its focus fit your passion, schedule, values, and budget? Why do I have values specified? Well, let's say that you are a vegan and the big sport in your area is backcountry hunting. Probably not a good values fit, right? So it should fit who you are, what you're about, and what's important to you as well. Schedule-wise, maybe you love rowing, something you did in college. You want to do it again, but you've got kids, you've got to get to school in the morning, and that's when the rowing events are locally. So maybe not a great fit. And budget, you might have a pretty good income, good business, but you've got twins heading off to college next year, so there's other priorities for your funds. So it should be a fit for how you live as well as what you value. Are you already actively participating in this at either an enthusiast or a competitive level? And does it have a home-related wellness component? For example, you need a whole lot of energy and stamina for some sports. There's recovery issues. Then you could be talking about creating a kitchen that supports healthy eating and training. And you could be talking about optimizing the bedroom and bathroom for recovery after they finish a day on the slopes or a day on the trails. So, all that's important, and all that relates to home. And do its demographics fit your client profile? Do they look like the people you're already successfully selling to? And again, does its positioning fit your business profile? Maybe, maybe not. So, skateboarding. A lot of the participants are too young to be homeowners. And in one presentation, someone raised their hand and said, "What about Tony Hawk?" I said, well, he's a great example of a great prospective customer, but for every Tony Hawk, there's probably 1,000 teenagers who worship him. Then we have dog sledding. Great endurance sport. How much of that happens where you are? And then equestrianism. Another great sport, but as a friend of mine who's owned a couple horses says, don't get a hobby that eats. So, things to think about. What happens to the folks who just are not into athletics at all? It's not your passion, not something you want to give time to. Well, there are non-athletic segment criteria for you folks too. Maybe you're already very invested into a health-related cause. You might sit on a local board, raise money, organize events, sponsor activities. You're known as, that's part of your passion in life. And it could be illness-focused, or it could be population-focused, but those both work, and they both present wellness market segment opportunities. So, here are some best practices to consider if you are tying in with a health condition. One is, yes, be the involved, connected advocate that you already are. That's why you're pursuing this. But you have to really balance out the ethics of it. You might find out through your local board that someone related to them was just diagnosed with that condition. There's nothing you could do or should be doing to leverage that information unless they ask you to get in touch. They know that you're in the building and design profession. They know that you might be able to help. Maybe it's modifying a bathroom to make life easier for them or making the kitchen easier, but you're not going to be the one doing the outreach. Just again, especially if you're in a small community, you're getting into privacy issues. And then sensitivity. We all have it, but this time you sometimes have to call on reserves. Have any of you ever had the experience of working with a client who had an illness and they would have to cancel appointments at the last minute or reschedule or end early, or even during the appointment they were just not up to finishing that meeting? And it can be frustrating, so a certain amount of extra sensitivity beyond our standard is often called for. And then, this is an important one, stay in your lane. You might be very knowledgeable about that condition through your years of advocacy. You might be a survivor, you might be a caregiver or a past caregiver, but you do not want to be giving out health advice unless you have a health medical credential. That's an area to stay away from. Now, what you can do, though, is you can partner with a health professional for that advice. It could be the client's own professional, could be a professional where they're the one dispensing that, and you are simply a conduit. And of course, you want to stay focused on the home-related aspects. It's very easy for us empathetic folks to get caught up in conversations about the illness and the condition, but we really need to stay focused on the home-related and continue to be perceived as that home professional. So, objective 5, position yourself as a wellness design professional for local media. Anyone already doing work with the media in your market? All right, so some local wellness media opportunities. You've got daily newspapers. That could be the health, the home, or a lifestyle section. You have neighborhood newspapers. These tend to be weekly, and enthusiast publications. There might be a, Orlando Runner or, Tampa Yoga or whatever it is. There are some of those that are still surviving, probably fewer than before COVID, but they're still around. Local design publications, the regional home and garden magazines. Local seniors or parents or religious group publications. Local morning TV shows. That could be just a general, Good Morning Orlando, Hello Tampa, whatever it is for that morning show usually has lifestyle-oriented coverage. And then you have home-related TV shows or radio programs, and websites and podcasts and blogs. And sometimes the websites, podcasts, and blogs are put out by a print publication or a TV station, but they might have their own contact people. So wherever you can, look to see who's doing that booking of guests or hiring writers if you have a writing flair. So how do you gain media experience? You can create a free guide, something wellness-oriented that fits your focus, and offer it to your site visitors with email capture. Anyone doing this already? I see a lot of them when I look around on different designer websites and builder websites. So that's a way to create content, tie it into wellness and your service, and build a mailing list. You could start a blog. Now, if you do that, my suggestion is to have in mind how often you're going to write, when you're going to write, and the topics you're going to cover. Kind of start with a basic editorial calendar so you get some continuity going. If that's just not something you want to do, you don't have the time, it's not your thing, you could potentially offer guest posts to other bloggers. That's how I got started. And you could submit links to that guide that you created or guest posts when you pitch local media outlets. You're essentially saying, here's some information that could be valuable to your viewers or your readers or your listeners. And you're not going to send them to the email capture page, you'll send them to the actual content page. That's kind of important because nobody's going to give you their email just to read what your expertise is. So send them to the right place. And if you are business to consumer, you could be pitching these local, these micro neighborhood publications and specialty publications just to build up some experience and some clips and some knowledge. And you can work your way up to the larger outlets. If you have contacts of the larger outlets, great. No reason not to start there if you want to. And if you're not a writer yourself, you can either hire one or you can hire an editor who can polish up your thoughts. Or you could pitch yourself as an expert source, where you're not saying, I'm going to write this, but I've got ideas to contribute. But here's an important thing, and Lori Dolnick is one of the marketing whizzes who's actually here at the show. She represents Tile of Spain. The focus going forward can't be on platforms you don't own. I don't think anyone in here has an ownership share of Instagram, am I wrong? Or Facebook, or Twitter, or LinkedIn, or YouTube or TikTok. And that means you don't control when they change how they rank your content, what they prioritize, whether it's pictures or video. You don't have any control over that. So that's not where to be putting in the bulk of your energy. So you can integrate social and traditional media together and get some more bang for your buck. So you can share links to original content on social media, especially in groups where local editors and producers might see it. And they tend to like big neighborhood groups where they can catch the news before their competitors do and put it on TV later. You can contribute to social media conversations with editors and producers on topics. Connect to and hashtag hot topics. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you are in a field where you're getting you're really interested in these new induction tops with the new porcelain tops with the built-in induction hobs, which are great style-wise, technology-wise, health-wise, and they tie into that whole conversation about, do we lose our gas cooktops? Are they going away? Well, here's a benefit that you can add to your home's wellness and potentially your home's value, definitely its style. And so you're connecting to a hot topic, the whole gas conversation, but you're tying it into wellness design and the products that you might be selling, these new porcelain tops that have the induction capability, just as one example. You could build a list of local media reporters and editors who are interested in your topic, and keep that list updated on new advances. I'll bet a lot of them don't know about these tops that have the built-in induction, but they're focused on cooking, they're focused on health, they're focused on safety. So you can apprise them of this new technology, these new offerings, and where their audience can see them. And mainly that's at your showroom, that's through your business. Because what you want to be is that go-to person. When they think about wellness design, they think about the knowledge, the resources, the expertise that you have. And being reliable means when an editor or a journalist reaches out, that you're quick to follow up with what they need. So learning objective 6, work effectively with media for valuable exposure. So finding the contacts. You know, print publications is pretty easy to pick them up, look at it, go to the website. Blogs, also pretty easy to see on a contact page who to write to. TV, radio, podcasts might be a little bit tougher, especially for TV and radio. The sites, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, these active neighborhood groups are all good places to find them. I don't suggest pitching writers or editors through social media, but if you have their information, you can get their email, you can communicate with them that way. You can potentially hire a publicist. Has anyone done that? And if you do hire a publicist, you can get them through a referral for somebody who does what you do in another market or through one of the brands that you carry. But I suggest trying them out on a project basis rather than, somebody might want a 6-month retainer or 12-month retainer. See if they'll work with you on a single project with a specific time frame and goal. See if the chemistry is there. See if they get the placements that you're hoping they will get. And then you'll see if you want to continue. So how do you pitch a media outlet? First paragraph, you can have 2 or 3 sentences describing the story or segment idea. Then the second paragraph is why it's relevant to their audience, and you should know that outlet, and also how you would structure or illustrate it. If it's a print outlet or it's an online outlet, you want high-resolution images that you have the rights to. If it's TV, then often you want to bring in a sample, something to show. The next paragraph is why you're the right person to either be quoted in this story or to write it. What's your relevant experience and credentials? And the last paragraph is to thank them for the consideration. If it's time sensitive, you can say, if I don't hear back from you by X date, maybe you're sending us on Monday, end of day Friday, then I'll presume you're not interested and I'll keep you in mind for the next one. Don't say you'll call them back. Don't say you'll write them back. If they're interested, they will reach out to you, and they might do it pretty darn quickly. So if you're heading out on a trip the next day, don't send a pitch. So the last thing you're going to put is a subject line with your idea and credentials. And the credentials should be the most relevant to that topic. So if you're pitching on I mentioned let's say you're pitching about accessibility and how tile is very walker wheelchair friendly, great aging in place material. Then your best credential would be that aging in place or living in place credential would be the most relevant. And the idea is going to be about safe flooring for seniors or something along that line. A couple of media pitch tips. One is know the outlet before pitching. Read a couple or watch a couple of segments, listen to a couple of podcasts, know what they want, know what they're using, and don't pitch them something they just did a week or 2 weeks ago. I get that all the time. It's like I write an article for Forbes and I'll get 3 pitches about the same idea after it publishes. 2, your subject line has a timely angle. And that could be a news hook or it could be seasonal. We just passed Easter. Every year, editors need new Easter content. Coming up on graduation season, then you've got summer vacations, you've got all kinds of things that happen every year that you could potentially tie into. And of course, there's news hooks, like the whole gas conversation, or some celebrity has a major injury and they can't walk for weeks. Well, you have a way to make their homes more accessible. That could be a potential tie-in to someone who just made the news for something that's sad and difficult and painful. Acknowledge that, but you can be helpful. Subject line has your strongest, most relevant credential. And you're going to run a grammar and a spell check. And you're going to step away. After you write your first draft of the pitch, you're going to step away from the computer. You're going to go do other things. You're going to come back to it with fresh eyes. You might even print it out. Make sure that it says what you wanted to say. And then add their email address. If you add it first, you might accidentally send it before you intend to. Has anyone else besides me had that happen, where something gets sent off too quickly? Can happen if you don't put their address into that to box. So I always say put that in last. And if you can, send it with a read receipt. I use Outlook and it lets me know whether they actually read it. And if they didn't read it, they can object to your sending it to someone else that same week or later on. Again, you want to keep timely ideas timely. I had one pitch I sent out last summer about safe firearms storage. And I sent it to the editor at 12 o'clock, got a read receipt at 12:05, got the assignment at 2 o'clock. All within just a very short time frame, because as a wellness consultant and looking at safety as one of those facets of wellness design, that was a fit for something that was in the headlines at that time. So it's just more exposure. You guys could do the same as well. And again, you don't have to be a writer. You can work with someone on that. I have 3 free program handouts and an evaluation at my website, jamiegold.net/wellnessadvantage-handouts. And these are photo credits, by the way. If you are doing a presentation, you're creating a flyer, you're doing anything with imagery, you should always credit the photo source. So I've got pictures from my book. I've got pictures from the companies that are here for all those beautiful tile shots. And I've got pictures from 2 royalty-free sources. If you're doing any type of printed material or online material, any guides, and you need pictures of people doing yoga or doing triathlons or in a wheelchair, in a walker, or just people in general, these are great sources for those images where you don't have rights issues. They are available for anyone's use, and you don't even have to credit them, but I share this as a good source. Are there any NKBA certified designers in the room? Because if you go on to nkba.org or nkba.com, you can get a 1 CEU for this hour. Any questions? I know we went through a lot of material really quickly. It's a dense program. All right, well, thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope that you will download the handouts of some of the information we shared. and that this was worthwhile investment. And if you didn't get a book, that comes with the program. Well, thank you. Yeah.